The mic is open once again. I'm Alan Hoshida. This week, we're bringing on Nick Nollenberger, the voice of the San Jose Barracuda, the San Jose Sharks AHL club, but he also is the voice of the Sharks rookie Faceoff tournament that just wrapped up over the weekend, and that means he had a first-hand look at some of the Sharks' best prospects and how they did. San Jose went 2-0 in that tournament, but as we get looking into training camp, everyone wants to know about Michael Misa, Sam Dickinson, and all these young Sharks who are pushing for NHL time. There's no better time to check in with Nick Nollenberger, so let's open up the mic for Nolly. All right, Nick Nollenberger, we just had a beautiful introduction for you. You're going to love it when you hear it. You're just going to love it. But here you are, the voice of the Barracuda, PR extraordinaire for the San Jose Barracuda and everything that comes with it. But also, over the last 8 years plus, right? You've been the voice for San Jose Sharks rookie Faceoff. It's turned into different things. So I wanted to bring you on to The Mic is Open. It's a perfect time. The rookie camp just wrapped up. Sharks fans all want to hear about everything that happened. So let's bring you on. Let's talk some shop. We'll talk some hockey as we always do, but then we're going to get into some other things. But Nick, before we get going, what I really start this podcast with, I don't know if you've heard it yet, is I open the mic up. The mic is yours. We all have some things that we need to get off our chest. And, as young dads, there's lots of things that go on in the day-to-day. So if you need to, let me be your therapist here. Step up to Mike and give me something that you need to get off your chest.
I mean, I have no excuses. I've been on paternity leave for 3 months. So my off seasons are pretty light anyway, because I kind of equate my job to being like a teacher. You get the summers off to a degree, but I still have to be on meetings. I still have to be on calls. I have to be checking my email, and there's some different community events and whatnot. But this year I was totally off. No email for me, totally disconnected. It was awesome. Don't tell my boss. I missed everybody, but I mean, let's be real. To really be able to just shut it down for 3 months was amazing. And my daughter's now just hit 10 months. So
all right,
the entire first 6 months of the year, I'm traveling. My poor wife is just grinding away while we're on the road. And now it's getting to the fun part. So I skipped all the really hard stuff to a degree. But yeah, so life is good.
Okay, all right.
Can't wait for the season to start.
So we'll circle back, maybe midway through the year, where we're in the grind of the season.
She's sleeping good right now, so I'm in a great spot mentally, and so yeah, you're exactly right. You know better than I, right? As soon as you feel like you've got momentum and things,
it's going to change. It's changing on us as we speak. But you said something that I just kind of noticed. It's hockey season. When you're working in hockey, it's kind of great when you have kids, because that's the season is when they're in school too, right? Where you're like, oh, I just go to work, they're going to school, and then off season corresponds with summer. So I just put that together. Whereas if this happens long term, and I'm in hockey world, I think hockey world is a good season to be in, because you don't have to adjust your life. Whereas if you're in football or if you're in baseball, mostly baseball, football, you're over by whatever. But baseball during the summer would be tough.
It would be tough. I spent one season in minor league baseball, and it was a great experience, but I always thought that to myself too. I mean, for the off season to be in the summer when the weather is at its best, it's perfect. And I have this pipe dream, and I think it's just a pipe dream, that one day I'll take the family and we'll live in Mexico for 3 months in the off season, something like that. Maybe go to Hawaii. You probably got some recommendations for me. That's just my dream. Off season, let's just go on to a permanent vacation for 3 months. Again, I'm not in that spot because I'm still connected in the off season, but that's a pipe dream of mine.
I hear you. I would love to have a second home or a timeshare back in Hawaii, go back, eat some musubi on the beach, just walk down. And I mean, you're in Santa Cruz though, so you get the beach to a degree. I mean, it's the beach. I shouldn't say that, but it's just not as warm.
It's not as warm. Water's a little bit colder, but that's why I live in Santa Cruz. Even though I have to commute, it's that's what I tell myself all the time. It's if I can see the ocean a couple of times a week, I'm feeling pretty good. So, it's not all bad, but yes, tropical and Northern California ocean water is a little bit different. So again, it's a pipe dream, but maybe one day.
Thankful that you're back in the water. Back in the water a little bit, right?
A little bit. Yeah. I think throughout the season, once Bea was born, I don't think I surfed all year long. Yeah. But as soon as the season was over, I was like, honey, can I please get in the water? I beg you. So, I mean, with all my travel, I try to be fair. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to wake up at the crack of dawn, I'm gonna go and I'll be back by like 8:30, and
Yeah.
I'll be on dad duty. So yeah, it's been
That
good to get back on the water.
that's a nice thing about surfing. You get out there early. You have to get out there early, and then you're just kind of done with the day, and you get to go and then you get into your other duties. So we're off the rails, as I said. We really came here because we're talking about young baby sharks. This had the rookie face-off tournament. Looked a little bit different than years past. You were on the call for both games. Sharks took on the Ducks and the Kings prospects, and there's a lot of eyeballs on the San Jose Sharks because when you have the top prospect pool in the NHL, people are going to want to see. And in this format, if you are the top team, the top prospect pool, you better show up because it's not a good reflection if you don't. And all they did was score 14 goals in 2 games, come back from a 4-0 deficit in game 2, and their guys started to turn the corner in that second game. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot to unpack. But for you, what was just your like, after the 2 games were over, when you decompressed a little bit from those calls, what was something that stood out to you?
Well, the thing with these tournaments, because they're playing against their peers, if they have you expect them to have a ton of success. You looked at the Sharks roster, they have 5 number one draft choices in the lineup in game number one, 4 in game two because Ravensbergen didn't play, and multiple second round draft picks. So you have, I want to say, almost 10 guys that were drafted in probably the top 60. So
Mm-hmm.
on paper, you should dominate. And that's exactly what happened in the first game. They won pretty convincingly 6-3. And then you turn around less than 24 hours later, you play LA at 1 o'clock. And personally, maybe because I'm working back into it, I felt a little sleepy. I felt low energy a little leading into the game. And it certainly felt like the players had that similar feeling because before they knew it, it was 4-0 LA after a period. They gave up 2 goals in the first minute and 30 seconds. It was like, wow. But even as you watched the game and things started to progress beyond that point, you could tell the Sharks, just simply based off a talent perspective, had a lot more talent on the ice. And as they started to get some confidence going, the floodgates just opened. They scored, I think, 5 unanswered goals, 8 goals total, and they come all the way back to beat LA. So if it was a bad showing, then you're thinking, well, that's concerning. If it's a good showing, you take it with a grain of salt because
Right.
they're playing against young players or playing against fellow rookies. But all the guys you hope that would make an impact certainly did. I think obviously of Musty and Misa and all these first round draft picks, Dickinson, all of them. I mean, Dickinson had 4 points in game two. Misa had 4 points in game two. I thought Musty was the best player on the ice for certainly game one, and I thought at parts in game two he was just dynamic. And you see the offense, and you see the kind of tenacity. Even dropped the gloves, got in a
Mm-hmm.
scrap. That's not necessarily his game, but you can tell he's trying to make an impact going into this camp. So lots to be excited about. I was getting texts from people just saying how stacked this team was,
Yeah.
and how fun it is to watch because the growing pains to fill your cupboard, your prospect cupboard, it takes a couple of years and it hurts. And the Sharks and their fan base have gone through that. But when you start to get the bodies into the organization and you see it firsthand in the flesh, some of the ability, kind of gets you excited about what the future could hold. Does it translate immediately? That's up in the air. Who out of this group is going to impact this team potentially this year? Who kind of rises to the top is the question. So tons to be excited about. I think they did what they needed to do in the two
Yeah.
games, and we'll see if it can help kind of propel some of these young guys going into training camp. Because I think it's a great way to get your feet wet. You play a couple games, you go into camp, and then you're able to kind of hit the ground running a little bit.
2 guys that aren't going to be in the discussion this year that I think stood out before we get to the more intriguing topics of the guys is Haoxi Wang got in a fight, got thrown out, then got returned to the game, but also he had moments where you could see all that raw talent. And I think every time, even at Dev Camp, I don't know if you were able to get to Dev Camp this year, but uh, he had moments where he was like, oh man, he's really good. And obviously he's 18-year-old kid. He's got some 17, or he might even turned 18 at this point, but he's got some moments to turn. Ravensbergen also not going to be in the conversation this year for the San Jose Sharks. Might not be for 2 years, but I think his first game, he made one save that he had to go push hard across and then make a pump fake glove save because the guy did. Like, those 2 guys impressed me in their small doses, and the Sharks aren't going to see a whole lot more of them, after training camp this season.
Yeah, Haoxi Wang he's gonna go to BU, but he's gonna spend another
Mm-hmm.
year in the OHL this upcoming year. So that's just another season for him to develop. And we've seen the Sharks. They've had multiple first round picks over the last couple of years. And when you're picking in the first round, you're gonna take the best player available. And when they got to the second round this year, it seemed like in a player like Wong, you're taking a player with an extremely high ceiling. and still a ton of runway in terms of development. We've
Yeah.
heard his story quite a bit. Grew up in China, an incredible story, really. Comes over to North America, still very green and raw, but you can't teach 6'6" and the ability to really move because you saw that in the two games. He's very mobile, a really fluid skater. And you mentioned it, we saw a little bit of a different element too. He was in the fray, didn't mind dishing out some punishment, ends up dropping the gloves with Caleb Lawrence of LA, who's 6'7", and Haoxi Wang is 6'6". So it's two big guys going after each other. But one thing you notice just being around him, first, he's got a really great personality. He has a minimal accent, so he's going to be a fun interview. But he's got a really good personality. And I don't know if you picked this up in game number 2. So he gets into the fight. They gave him a 5-minute major for fighting and a 10-minute misconduct for continuing the altercation because when they went to the ground, they continued to fight. Well, they sent Lawrence and
Kids being kids, man.
they sent the two down their respective tunnels because there was only about 12 minutes left in the second period. And then we didn't see them on the bench in the third, nor in the penalty box. And then all of a sudden there was a whistle, and the officiating crew kind of huddles up. And for about 3 or 4 minutes, they're having a discussion. Then they come over to the respective benches. And I thought to myself, I wonder if this has to do something with those two. Come to find out after the game, the officiating crew made a mistake and they told them they were both out for the game. So they both went and showered, got into their street clothes. Haoxi Wang was in the trainer's room just getting some normal work done. And they said, "You're actually not kicked out of the game. Would you like to go back in?" And he's like, "Heck yeah." So he had already showered, throws back on his wet gear. And about midway through the third period, he's back out there. So it gives you an idea that he loves the game, that he's highly competitive because
the other guy didn't go back in, right?
The other guy didn't come back. So, again, the physical tools are off the charts. Really excited to just see where his game evolves over the next couple of years. But I think when they made that pick, they're looking at a guy with just undeniable physical tools. And if he can continue to develop, get more coaching, he's going to have a longer path going to college. Again, the ceiling's really high on what he could be as a player for this team.
And so we had those guys that we weren't going to really see a whole lot of. It's great to see them kind of perform against other teams. We saw them at Dev Camp. Two things that also stood out to me. Colin Graf solidified himself as an absolute NHL player. He was impactful, controlled the game a lot, both games. He was on the score sheet both games. I don't think he's coming back to the Barracuda. I'm sorry, my friend, but I don't think there's a world that Colin Graf comes back. And I think it was also smart that they put some more experienced guys with the young ones that have never been through it. That Colin was obviously showing the way. And I also think Luca Cagnoni, night 1, 3 assists, I believe, on the power play. He ran that thing to perfection. He was so good that Sam Dickinson, who many believe in the organization is going to be one of their top 2 defensive pairings, probably top 1 at some point, but he wasn't even on their first power play because that's how good this Luca Cagnoni has become with running the power play. He didn't even play the second game because they're like, we're good. Let's give Sam some run with the first unit, right? But those two guys stood out to me in facts that Colin Graf is definitely making the NHL roster. I think he's going to do everything up and down that lineup. Luca Cagnoni just solidified himself. I don't know if he's making the Sharks, but I do believe them saying you're going to get the first power play on the first opportunity that anybody sees the Sharks, these prospects above Sam Dickinson. I think that just speaks volumes to what the organization believes he can become.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, there's so many guys that you can kind of pick from. And Graf's a little bit of the outlier because he wasn't drafted, but you don't see very many guys at this type of event have as much NHL experience as he accumulated last year.
Yeah.
So to see him go out there and play the way he did, it was not a surprise at all. It was kind of funny. I was in a group text with all the players and the staff, just the communication group text to kind of tell us where to be and when the bus is arriving, all that stuff. And it was Colin who had actually texted in the group before the trip and said, "Hey, everybody wear your teal polos and your black pants." He was kind of the one who took on that role as a leader of sorts, still very young in his career. He's got 1 year of
the face-off rookie captain.
Pro experience. Yeah, he didn't wear the C. They had 3 assistant captains, but certainly as a guy who in that situation was a veteran player, he took that on. And I thought for a player like that who played as much as he did last year, again, a bit of a surprise he was on that roster, but he took it in stride, used it as a chance to, I think, again, set the tone and kind of set the stage for training camp. And he was as advertised. We saw him last year. We saw the hockey smarts. We saw the the way he thinks the game, the way he was able to assimilate into an NHL roster. We saw the way he played for the Barracuda, in particular in the postseason. I think everybody expects him to be right there pushing for a job. And if he doesn't make the Sharks right away, which I assume he will, he's going to be called up. He's going to be one of the first call-ups. I think he's part of the future here. And again, to get a guy basically for free because you got him as an undrafted player is a huge, huge deal. And that's how organizations get out of the pit, right?
Yeah.
You have to draft one. You've also got to acquire guys in the college free agency market. So yeah, Graf was who we thought he was, I guess, if you will. And, he showed out and he had a couple of goals in the most recent game. I guess that was yesterday, and had one in the opener as well. So yeah, he was very good. And then Cagnoni, we saw him last year too. Cags was so good as a 19-year-old, one of the best seasons really for a Sharks prospect ever in the AHL from the back end. He's small, he's undersized. That's always going to be maybe the knock on him. But the way he thinks the game, the way he's able to make plays, in particular on the power play, you just can't teach it. So for a guy who's maybe 5'10" on his best day, there's a reason why he is in the minds, I think, of the front office as a potentially a piece in the future, is because the ability and the way he plays the game is undeniable. So yeah, he was great. Not surprised at all. I'm really excited to see him get a bigger taste in the NHL this year. I think he played 6 games last season.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he ends up getting around the 25 game range. Maybe more, maybe less. You just never know. There's veterans kind of in the mix this year on the back end, but man, the skill is there for sure. I think he showed off last year he can defend at a high enough level and has the ability to do so to play in the NHL as well. So yeah, it's a good point by you to notice that he was getting some of those top reps on the power play, maybe ahead of a younger player in Dickinson, but maybe more touted, I guess, if you will, in Sam Dickinson. So hey, more the merrier, right? Because
you
guys
got to have 2 power plays. Yeah.
Yes. You got 2 exactly. And it's almost a joke looking at some of the guys on the power play. I think the number 1 unit had 4 number 1 draft choices at one point on the ice, and they kind of spread the wealth as well. But 3 power play goals on night 1, and I think a couple in game 2, I guess, if you will. So
it was impressive because then the next night they're like, "Oh, Cagnoni, take the night off. We're gonna just run out our number 11 pick." Who by all this offseason, I'm listening to all this stuff, just reading a bunch. Sam Dickinson has risen up the defensive rankings from his draft class, and that draft class was supposed to have like 6 elite defensemen, and he's maybe 1 or 2 now because of what he put together. And so they got him at 11 and Macklin Celebrini at 1. That draft. I mean, Mike Greer might have missed on a couple trades this year. Maybe we're looking back at Mackenzie Blackwood and saying, man, he might have been able to get a little bit more. But that draft, if you get Macklin Celebrini at 1 and then Sam Dickinson at 11, who people were saying was like maybe the 4th or 5th best defenseman, that draft is going to go down as a difference-making draft for the San Jose Sharks. So with that, Dickinson steps into that number 1 power play. Michael Misa looks more comfortable in game 2, starts walking down the wall, no-look passes, just tape to tape, easy one-timers. Those 2 guys definitely pushed forward, I think, in that second game, 4 points each. That's from us looking back. What was it like when you watched them real time and kind of get more confidence and just kind of get more comfortable against playing other opponents where, Dev Camp, it was all Sharks on Sharks, and you're not going to go try and run your own dude.
Well, the other thing, too, you have to kind of weigh is the fact these guys haven't played for several months, at least not competitive games. And these are not all NHL players on the ice. You've got a lot of teenagers. You've got some tryout guys. It's kind of a mix bag in terms of the players on the ice. But look, these guys are all playing hard. Guys who are maybe tryout players are trying to prove that they belong potentially in an organization. So I think in night 1 we saw 4 or 5 fights, and in game 2 there was a couple more. So these games are physical.
The Ducks were taking some major liberties.
Yeah, Cam Lund unfortunately took a hard hit and didn't play in game 2. So that's about the last thing you want in these type of games. But they're physical. They were intense. At times they were a little bit frenetic because guys are trying to figure out systems and all those things, and they're just trying to get their feet under them. But again, what you hope to see was some of the skill, some of the playmaking ability, and we saw that on full display. In particular, on the power play, it almost felt like the power play they rolled out in that rookie tournament could be an NHL power play already, and it gives an idea of the depth and the skill. So, yeah, it was a fun event, and for these young players, last year we saw Celebrini playing it, we saw Smith playing it, we saw glimpses of their abilities, in particular Macklin. but they didn't just absolutely dominate the tournament. And that just shows that the talent's high, even though
Yeah.
it's a lot of young players.
Well,
So,
so with that, you've watched it. You saw it last year with Macklin and Will, and we kind of knew Macklin and Will were both going to be on the team this year. How did, if you can, I mean, 365 days you've had a kid, a lot of things have happened in those 365 days. But if you could take yourself and watch both of those sets of two players, how do they compare to each other? The Sam Dickinson and Michael Misa, what they did this year compared to what Macklin and Will did.
well, I mean, it's hard to deny the fact that Dickinson and Misa are going to be close to where those guys were last year. Now, look, Macklin Celebrini is kind of one of one at his age, and the way he plays the game as a 200-foot player and what he did right off the bat as an NHL player. And the biggest test for these players are when they get NHL games. And whether it's Dickinson or it's Misa, I think everybody expects at the very least they're going to get their 9 games, and then a decision will be made. But that's when we're going to find out. We won't find out in training camp. We won't find out in preseason games because these preseason games are at times somewhat of a glorified AHL game because half the roster is usually NHL players and the other half is AHL players. So it's hard to get a great read, but we'll find out. I mean, we'll find out. You start to get a glimpse, you get an idea during training camp and you get an idea during some of these preseason games, but the real test will be in the regular season against NHL players in NHL games. But he said 4 points, as we mentioned. Dickinson had 4 points. Hard to deny that. And we saw the playmaking from both of those guys on full display.
Pouring cold water. Just cold water. Don't get too excited, guys. They may not make the team. But it's good. It's a good cautionary tale. And
Well, they're
also,
teenagers, and that's
yeah.
just what you have to remember. And if they do make the team, you're talking about them joining Celebrini and Smith, who are also teenagers. So you just have to have realistic
Will is
expectations.
20 years
He's
old.
20 now.
Mid
But I
20.
asked Todd Marchant during one of our intermission interviews about that. Is there such thing as too many young players on a team? And he said no if they deserve to be on the team.
Yeah.
So they're gonna ultimately dictate whether they're in the NHL because the Sharks have been pretty clear with the fact that if these guys play well enough and prove that they belong, then they're going to be on the roster. And if
Yeah.
they can steal somebody's job, they will be on the roster. It's not the door's not closed like, hey, these guys are young, we're going to send them back to junior no matter what. That's not the case. So if they show they can do it, then they'll be on the team, and Sharks fans will be excited. I think if one of them doesn't make the team, it's not the end of the world. Look, this thing isn't turning around necessarily this year. It's going to take a couple more years, and you want the best development path for these players.
Yeah, and I wonder what the development path is then. Like sending them back to junior, yeah, they're going to play a bunch of minutes, they're going to score a bunch of points, but do they get better in that scenario? Because honestly, I thought NCAA would have been a nice route. I'm just an onlooker. I don't know all these things, but it seems like the NCAA has been able to spit out some pretty good products over here the last 2-3 years and become a really good development league for the NHL. So maybe, but Dickinson, when he signed his entry level deal, that wasn't even a possibility. So that kind of, he gets stuck kind of in that limbo where when he signed, there was no opportunity for you to go play NCAA. Michael Misa, there was. His signing took a little bit later. I think it's all systems go. You got to push these guys. The Sharks are in a spot, like you said, where they can maybe do this and let them all kind of grow together. And man, if they all grow together, your core, the teal four, as I'm going to call them, man, that's going to be a pretty strong four that you could push forward. And their contracts are staggered by one whole year, so it'll be fine once the salary cap explodes.
Everybody's so concerned about that, but that's a good problem to have. If you have to sign these guys to big contracts, that means they are fulfilling their potential. And for me, so what I take away from him signing his entry level contract and not going the NCAA route because his brother's playing college and is going to be playing college this year would have been an easy thing for him to do. It kind of peels the curtain back a little bit on how competitive he is and the fact that he wants to play in the NHL this year. If he doesn't make it, he's open to going back, obviously. But if he doesn't make it too, there's the World Junior Championships. He was not invited to Canada's camp last year. I'm sure he wants to be on that team, and that's a huge stage. But again, the Sharks are open to him making the team. So if he comes in and puts together a camp that just is undeniable, he'll be in the NHL, and he's betting on himself. So I like the competitiveness of a kid like that. And for you to be drafted second overall, you're a different breed. You got to this point because of the confidence you have in yourself.
They are so stacked that we haven't talked about Quentin Musty, who was arguably maybe the best young shark there, and Igor Chernyshov, who maybe didn't pop as much as, you know, people wanted to. I think at Dev Camp, he had an awesome Dev Camp, but opening night or the first game, it was Cam Lund, Philip Beestead, and Quentin Musty. Now I'm not saying they're not going to make the San Jose Sharks, but there's a bodies issue. If you have Cam Lund, Philip Beestead, and Quentin Musty running out there for the San Jose Barracuda, what line is that? And how many goals are they scoring?
It's a good question, and this is going to be a big year for Beasted because last year they had him more in the 3C role. He had a couple of veterans in front of him. He's going to get an expanded role if he's with the Barracuda, of course, and he is not going to be your big time playmaking center, but he's going to do everything right, and he's going to take care of his own end. So the potential there, I think, is in the future. If he can be your third line center in the future, then you're hitting a home run because they're hard to find. He's a big guy. I think he's still got a lot of room to grow. Lund is a really intriguing guy because like Musty, they were drafted in different years, but it feels like, or it felt like for a little bit, they're almost forgotten prospects. Lund in particular, because he had two not subpar seasons at Northeastern, but didn't really pop. He had a really, really good junior season. Team wasn't very good, but came in last year, scored a couple of goals with the Sharks. I loved him when they first drafted him. I thought there was a ton of potential there. And then Musty's a first round draft pick, but because of last year and how things transpired, asked for a trade, some drama with his junior team, gets hurt a couple of times, didn't make the Sharks, even though he put together a really good initial rookie faceoff, and then camp didn't maybe go the way he hoped. It was almost he's almost forgotten about in this bunch because there's been more players joining the fold. So I spoke to Quentin before the first game, and he has a goal this year, like all these guys, to make the Sharks as well.
Yeah.
And who's to say he can't, right? Because all the ability is there. He's continuing to try to evolve his game, become a more 200-foot player. But you see the skill set there, and it certainly gets you excited about what could be. And what's great too is the AHL is right down the hall. So
Yeah.
if a guy doesn't make the team, he's right there to be called up again. But it's going to make for a competitive and exciting training camp. And look, I wouldn't put it past Musty on him really opening some eyes. Now he's going to have a better camp than he did last year, but guys grow a lot in a year. So I'm excited to see what he can
Yeah,
do.
and he had some great
But there's
comments.
so many guys. There's so
Yeah.
many guys.
And he had some great comments after the game where he was talked about how he wasn't happy with how the Ducks were kind of coming after their guys. And, the Sharks are going to, when they're in this type of situation, they're going to be gunned for because they have the most talent. People are going to want to just be like, oh, the Sharks are all this, but I'm good too. And so it was good for him to see that kind of maturity. And I know he said some things even at Dev Camp that he's trying to work on his 200-foot game. I think he makes his Sharks debut this year. I don't think that's in question. I think Igor Chernyshov makes his Sharks debut this year. I think Beasted probably makes his Sharks debut this year. I don't know when that is, and I hope when they do, just like anybody, you want to hope for success. And if they come in and they never look back, that's great things. But also for you, if they don't and they come to the San Jose Barracuda, last year was a lot of fun for you. There was a lot of fun. The Barracuda were pushing for playoffs. This year, it seems like the group that's going to be there's going to be some veterans, right, that are coming back, and you got Cagnoni, and he's going to be there probably a little bit. But then you have a bunch of young dudes and a lot of young, talented dudes that are going to be on the San Jose Barracuda.
Yeah, this is one of the most talented crops I can remember, at least from a draft standpoint. And last year, look, they wanted to get into the playoffs. That was a major goal of the franchise, is to make the postseason. And they brought in Paul Dorowski. He wins the league MVP. They bring in Jimmy Schultz. He becomes the captain. Scott Sabourin was back as a tough veteran presence in the locker room. You can go down the list of veteran guys who helped kind of get the team over the hump. This year, they brought in a few guys, not maybe the household AHL names, but those guys will help fill that role in terms of the veteran presence. But it's going to be up to the young players. And I think this team's going to go as far as some of these young players take them. And you mentioned the names. Is it Musty who's on the team? Chernyshov. Where does Cagnoni take his game in year number 2? Is Cam Lund on the team? We'll find out how this roster is going to look.
Halton. We haven't talked about Casper Halton.
Casper Halton, another guy who will be in the mix. So you can just continue to go down the list on the talent that'll be joining this team. And again, it'll be interesting on who kind of rises to the top. And that's with the Barracuda, that's with the Sharks during camp. So, um, yeah, there's a lot to play out, I guess, if you will, over the next 3 or so weeks during camp and leading into the regular season. But yeah, this is certainly one of the most talented crops I can ever remember during my time that's expected to play in the AHL this year.
Work wise for you, from a professional standpoint, when you're going to this rookie tournament, it's usually your first hockey calls of the year, right? Is that safe to
Yeah.
say?
Yep.
Yeah. So for you, what is this weekend like, just to kind of get reacquainted with? And also, you're going to see a lot of these guys, like we just talked about with the Barracuda. So is it kind of also good for you to kind of get in the flow to just saying their names quickly on the fly while you're doing it, and also get kind of familiar with who they are and their games a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And development camp helps too. I guess that would be the one time in the summer that I call games because we have a development camp scrimmage,
Yeah.
and you get familiar with them and you get familiar through the draft. So the easy part for me is actually our team. The hard part is the opposition, because there's so many different faces. There's a couple of sprinkled in guys, for an example, with LA on Saturday that I saw last year in Ontario, and on Friday with Anaheim I saw in San Diego. But for the most part, these are completely new names and some difficult names to try to really lock in
Yeah.
before a broadcast. But it's, for me too, it's a good way to kind of knock the rust off. And it's true, there is rust. I mean, you don't call games for a little bit, just getting the timing and the feel back. It takes a little bit, but it was fun, and that's it's a lot more enjoyable for me personally when you get to watch hockey of that caliber and players of that ilk.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. I had a blast, and certainly excited about a lot of these guys. Again, I mean, I keep saying it, I sound redundant, but there's so much talent uh,
Yeah.
right now in that kind of age range, 18 to 20-ish. Um, it's got to get you fired up, and it was fun to see it.
You have Havlid coming as well to the Barracuda, I would
Yeah.
almost certainly
Another
say. I
second
mean,
rounder who
yeah.
almost feels like a forgotten prospect because
Well,
it
he
took him a
was,
few years.
yeah, he
You
stayed
know,
over there, really baked, really got
yes,
incubated
he
over there.
did. He did. And he had some injury issues over there too. And yeah, I thought he was good. I really thought he was
Yeah.
really good. I mean, his ability, his skating ability, scored a couple of goals. That's not necessarily his game, but you saw on display some of the tools we've been told about, and that's some of the playmaking ability, the vision, pretty cerebral with the puck, and just the ability to get away from the opposition with his skating ability. So yeah, I thought he was really impressive.
You get in the flow now. Now you're kind of going to ramp up here. Training camp for the Sharks opens next week. Barracuda will be opening shortly after that, as things start trickling down and the HL gets into its flow. What is your prep like as you enter a new season, and how much has that changed kind of as you've gotten more solidified in your role?
Well, again, it kind of ties into, like, if I was asked to call a Sharks game, I feel like I could, with the Sharks in particular, I'd feel really comfortable about the roster, even though I don't call Sharks games.
Yeah.
The same thing with the Barracuda. If I had to call just a prospect game, I'd feel pretty good about it because I have an understanding pretty much of everybody in the organization. I
Yeah.
try to keep tabs to a degree on some of these younger players we may be getting. But again, that I feel pretty good about it. The most prep really goes into the opposition and who we're playing. Understanding full well that our fans want to hear most about our team. I try to have a balanced approach where I'm not just completely one-sided. So I put a ton of preparation into the opposition, and that's probably the most. But what I find personally is just being around guys, having conversations, like casual conversations,
Hmm.
when I see them in the locker room, is where I get some of my best information. It's just having a conversation, asking a guy how his summer was, where he spends his off season. Did he go on any vacations? And then you just get stuff out of that just naturally. So that's what I enjoy doing around this time of year, is just catching up with um, guys and all that. So yeah, over the next 3 or so weeks leading into the season, a lot of the information just comes through osmosis and being around people. So you aren't writing down a ton of notes at this point. You're just trying to communicate and be sometimes a flower on the wall and different things like that. So it's a fun time of year because you start to collect additional information beyond just stats. So
Do you have to have absurdly really good eyes as a play-by-play? Because your game cards, I've printed them out for you, are tiny. I don't know. I couldn't read them because I have bad eyes. But how do you read? I think you just have to have great eyes because you're all obviously watching everything real time and you got to like spit it out. But your player cards, Nolly, are like size 9 font, I think.
Well, it's in part it's out of necessity because when I'm on the road, I print it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, and I have to fit all this information on it. But I would probably go bigger if I had larger paper on the road. I'm usually going down to like the hotel office to print. So they only have normal printer paper. So I just kind of have to fit it. I don't know how long it's going to last because I actually have only one eye that I really use. One of my eyes is basically, I'm not blind, but I don't use it. It's very blurry. So I basically use one eye. So I don't know how long it's going to last. I'll probably have to get glasses eventually. We'll see. But yeah, I do have good eyesight. I know that for a fact for the time being because you're exactly right. It is I'm surprised I don't need like a magnifying glass or something to see it. It is micro. People are like shocked when I
We
see
got to
it.
get you a ream of like the one you just put in the bottom of your suitcase. You just travel with it so that you get some
I know.
bigger
I might
font.
start doing that. I kind of redid my game notes this year, and they're a little bigger, and they don't fit on the sheet as
Size
well.
10 font.
So
Size
I think
10
I may
font.
have to get like 8.5 by like 17 paper or something for
Ooh,
the road. But yeah,
hey,
yeah. So
it's
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 fun.
impressive.
What I enjoy. I actually enjoyed. It's like when your teacher told you in high school or college, "Hey, we have a test coming up, but here's your cheat sheet that you can write everything down on,
Yeah,
but you can only use like the one piece of paper." That's basically what my game note,
yeah,
my
yeah,
my spotting boards look like. It's
yeah.
it's crammed everything you could ever need or know. It's on there. So yeah, I like to have it just in case I have a brain
Yeah.
cramp or I forget. So.
Shoot, man, I'm so impressed that you can even read it. But where did your love for play-by-play kind of come from? And was this something where when you were at Arizona, you just decided this is what you always want to do even before then, or is it something that kind of developed over some time, and now you've kind of made it yourself a career out of it?
Well, I mean, I always feel really like grateful because I've known I wanted to do this since I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. I've got a
Hmm.
twin brother, and we used to play floor hockey, mini sticks, and he would actually not let me play unless I did the play-by-play. And so, from a really early age, I mean, I love sports. I wanted to be an athlete like every kid who plays sports, but we all get to that point where we're like, yeah, we're not athletic enough or good enough to go very far.
Yeah,
But the broadcasting thing never really wavered. I always wanted to do it. And I can tie it back really to Dan Rosanowski and Randy Hahn as a young kid growing up, watching and listening to the Sharks all the time and falling in love with broadcasting. So, yeah, from a very, very early age, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how I was going to necessarily do it. So, when I went through college and I kind of went through that process, I had to just figure it out as I went. I remember one of my first classes at Arizona. I just started chatting with one of the kids in my class, and he said, "I'm part of the student radio." And I said, "Oh wow, I want to get into broadcasting." He's like, "We've got a meeting tomorrow. You should come." So I came. The kid that was doing hockey broadcasting was out for the weekend. They were doing some field trip to NFL Network in LA. So I filled in within like 3 days of me being in Arizona. I called my first hockey game, and
there you
thank
go.
goodness there's no record of it because I was terrible. But that was kind of the real start. I knew I wanted to do it, and I did it informally for a long period of time. But that was like the first actual game I called. Was like 3 or 4 days into my time at Arizona. So that's where it started, and then from there I worked in minor league baseball and worked in junior hockey for a season, and then I got the Barracuda job. So yeah, it's really been a total dream come true to work for the Barracuda and be home and be with the Sharks. And so yeah, it's been a total blessing and still love it. I mean, this is year 10 for me, so I think I
Yeah.
picked the right career. So
How long did you figure out? Because, when we do this as a broadcaster, we have people we look up to. We're like, oh, yeah, we like that. Obviously, Ruzi and Randy, like, it's pretty awesome that's people you listen to growing up are now people who have, I no doubt, I know, not probably, I know I've given you feedback on your reels and stuff and what you can do to improve like we have. And I'm in the same situation. Like those are my childhood voices as well. And so it's pretty cool in my position now to kind of get to know them a little bit better and on a different level. So that's awesome. But there's also that issue where you start feeling like you sound like someone else, right? Early on in your career, or you're like, oh, I want to do that because that's so cool. But then that's not really who you are as a broadcaster or a play-by-play person. How long did it take you to figure out this is who Nick Nollenberger is as a play-by-play and not who I want to emulate?
it's a good question, and I know people kind of they fight that a little bit early in their career, not wanting to sound, like somebody else. But my approach, and this isn't, I'm not trying to steal anybody's style, but to a degree, you don't really want to reinvent the wheel. And
Right.
I've always tried to listen to multiple voices. I listen, I'm a sports fan, so I listen to stuff all the time, and I find myself listening to different play-by-play guys, whether it's in the NHL or the NFL, or even I'll like pull a college basketball game up sometimes because I've done some different sports. And I think I can learn something from a guy who just started, and I can learn from a guy who's calling the Super Bowl. There's so many different things that you can pick up. So, I try to pull different things from people, and I think naturally you're going to sound like people that you listen to a lot. And I have been told, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I've been told that somebody told me I think I call a game like Dan, but I sound a little bit more like Randy, and that's like the ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree, but it kind of makes sense because I listen to those guys all the time, and that's the
Yeah.
standard in my mind on what I'm trying to reach. Will I ever reach that level? Probably not, but certainly we try as broadcasters. So that's kind of my approach. I listen to people all the time. I'll find different guys, in the NHL, and they're all good, and everybody has their own style. And you just think naturally you're gonna find your own style
Yeah.
because everybody's unique. And I'm never gonna be Dan, I'm never gonna be Randy, but I can pull things from their style and their approach, and hopefully apply it to my broadcast.
I mean, and being in the Bay Area, you particularly as a play-by-play person have some of the most iconic voices in the industry. If you go back, you got Stark, you got John Miller, you got Kruk and Kipe, you got Dan, you got Randy, you got Warriors. We'll go there. And everywhere you go, and you got Greg Papa doing it for the Raiders and 49ers. Like the Bay Area, their play-by-plays historically has been some of the best. I think, and I'm probably biased, but I also think it's true. Like we're growing up with some of the best play-by-play voices. So if you're emulating that, it's not like you're emulating people who don't have. Oh, Dave Fleming. I didn't even say Dave Fleming, and he's like really good, and he's so good he's not even good enough to be the best Giants guy because that's just where they are. But the institutions that we have as Bay Area play-by-play people, we're lucky.
No, we are so lucky. And again, tying into that is I've listened to all those guys. I mean, every sport in the Bay Area. I'm a sports fan. So
Yeah.
whether it's baseball or basketball, football, hockey, I've listened to all those guys growing up. So, and that's where you get the passion from. And it also, what it does too for you, at least in my opinion, is how do you live up to these guys? The standard is so high. And
Hmm.
and as you're going through this career, sometimes you feel this almost imposter syndrome when you're getting close to them and you're kind of able to pick their brain. And um, but at the same time, I'm sure these guys had these thoughts in their minds when they looked up to other broadcasters.
Yeah.
Dan, in my mind, as I've listened to Dan from a radio perspective my entire life, Randy too, but in talking to Dan, there was broadcasters that he looked up to, and I'm sure he was intimidated when he first spoke to them,
Right.
and thought that they were at such a level he could never reach. But over time, hopefully, as you continue to hone your craft, that you just become yourself and people are receptive to that. So I don't think you put too much pressure on yourself, but what a great example that we have here. You're exactly right. I mean, there are so many talented guys that can go so far back. I mean,
Yeah.
just one after the other, they turn them out. So
There's
it
like
gives you an
Hall.
idea how great it is in the Bay Area. I mean, we live in
Yeah.
an awesome spot. Everybody wants to live here. So
Yeah. Hall of Fame voices like up and down. It's pretty crazy. I don't think we appreciate the voices that we've grown up with, and even this generation, the generation before us, like they had great voices, and it's not the case across the country. And I think sometimes we need to take a step back with everything, and when it comes to sports, and just realize that we're pretty lucky. When you go into each year 10 for Barracuda, do you give yourself like there one thing that you want to improve on, or is there when you're looking at to progress your career forward or reach some goals, is there something that you kind of set up each year that you want to do, or is it just you go into it and then you kind of feel out how things go and then let it all happen kind of real time?
it's a great question. And yes, absolutely. There's always a couple of things that I try to work on and specifically focus on. And I'll use my goal call as an example. That was something in my first couple of years that I just didn't feel great about. And I think I'm still figuring it out over time. But to give you an example, as something I really tried to focus on during COVID, we had all that extra time. So I was calling a lot of games just off like YouTube to try to stay sharp and continue to get
Yeah.
better. But one thing I did is I reached out to a local woman here in Santa Cruz who had no broadcasting background, but she was a singing coach. And I worked with her for a few months with the thought that she could help me with the different variables that go into being a broadcaster because there's a lot of connections. I think you have a little bit of a singing background, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit. But there's connections between the two. You're using, your voice and using it as an instrument. So did that help me? I don't even know. But the fact that I had consciously thought that that's an area I really want to improve, I think is kind of where my mindset is at every year. So this year, one thing I focus on, I've got a kid, I've got less time. How do I become as efficient as possible so
Hmm.
I can not focus as much on stats and focus more on the relationships and the personal stories of these players and just having that additional knowledge.
Right.
And the less time I have to prep on like punching in a stat into my spotting board, the more time I have to read articles and get background information of people. So that's been my number one goal this year. So what that means is for me this year is a lot of automated game notes. So I've been building out my game notes this summer through Excel, just where I can basically take information off the internet, stats off the internet, and it automatically populates. Now there's some information I still need to go in there and punch in, but because I've
Let's
built
go
that,
AI.
it's amazing. And I've used AI for coding this summer with Excel and stuff. So it's been
Yeah.
really cool. It's kind of, it's been a pet project, but it's just how can I become more efficient? Because in my role too, I do a lot of different things aside from broadcasting, PR, and content related things. So I just want to become as efficient as
Yeah.
possible, and that was kind of my goal this summer. So
And I think that's becoming a father does that for you. It's like, okay, I only have, I don't know, 10, 12 hours in the day, and how can I get the most out of them?
totally.
And make sure not only get the most out of them, but that I'm functioning at the level that I need to function, both professionally and then my real job, the job that I have to do and being a dad. And so that's the biggest thing that happened for me too, is like you said, it's like you have to figure out what things are droppable. What is
Right.
fluff? What are things that, yeah, it's great if you have it, if you can lean on it, but then what are things that you absolutely have to have, and what are the time that you can commit to this? And it's just, and then you're also not knowing if you're going to sleep at night. So hey, there's a lot of things going on, which is a great way to how we get to this dad life. And this is how I always get into the mic is open. We get into dad stuff because a lot of times we get locked into who we are professionally, but we're way more than that. And obviously, being a dad has become the first and foremost thing to me, what I'm going to do for my daughters. You are right back onto that boat now. You joined us mid-season. You're like, hey, I'm a dad now. And it's just, and it was all open waters from there. Not rocky at all, just smooth sailing, just right in there. But I guess that's probably what I was going to ask is like, what is the first thing that you knew had to change immediately? And it kind of just sounds like time management. Was there anything else that you kind of quickly realized that, oh, this has to switch for me to be the best that I can be uh, in both aspects?
The biggest thing I think I've learned during this entire process is nothing is really about you anymore. And that's a good thing, and that's okay. But for the rest of my life as a parent, there is something that is way more important than myself.
Yeah.
And that's just a natural thing. That for me, that's what and it does take an adjustment because part of you that you've been used to, and that's personal goals, professional goals, working to have a great marriage and relationship with your wife, all those things, and that is extremely important to being a successful parent, but all of those things to a degree take a back seat to taking care of your child and making sure they have the best environment possible. And
Yeah.
so that's what's been really, I think, cool for me. I think it's grown me as a person. I think it's made me a better person. It's been hard. It's been extremely hard, especially having a kid like at the start of a hockey season.
That
Um,
was great timing.
was
Great timing.
incredible. Yeah, yeah. You
I
can't,
it's Cameron came
can't time this stuff out.
Cameron came September, so right in the heart of high school football season when I was in local news. And as you know, local news, like high school football when you're in smaller markets. I was in Hawaii. It's not even that small, but in Hawaii, it's like a huge thing. And I was like, I told my boss, I was like, yeah, she's due in the middle of football season. My bad.
And there's nothing, I mean, it's like there's nothing they can really do either, it's just how it goes sometimes,
No,
but it's if I could have drawn it up. Now, if I could have drawn it up, she would have been born right at the start of the off season, but then it would have been only 3 to 4 months where I would have been with her, and then I'm starting the season when she's
yeah.
like 4 months old. So it kind of worked out. I just had to grind through the 6 months, get through it, and then I got to enjoy paternity when she was a little older, which was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's been 7 to 10 months, right? Or 6 to 10 months.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now she's like you moving around,
Yeah.
sitting up. She
Such a
crawling?
fun time. She's
Crawling,
not
right?
crawling. She's kind of pivoting. If I
There you
if I
go.
don't look at her for a minute or two, she's like 5 or 6 feet
There you go.
in a different location. So she's
Yeah.
moving, just not crawling yet, which is kind of a good thing. Everybody keeps warning me once they crawl, once they walk, you're in a whole
Don't
different.
listen to them.
Okay.
Don't listen to
Thank
them.
you. Thank you.
Oh, it's better when they start developing. Like you need
Yeah.
them to hit their goals,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
like you're like, oh man. But I don't know. I think everything is super cool, and when everyone's like, oh, when they start walking, you got to chase them around. Well, right now, good news is you're 2-on-1, so that's great news. Now, second one, when they start walking, not as great. But she's a crazy person, the little one, Brooke. But I think just enjoying those things, right? And when they do start walking, it's such a milestone. Like, and you're waiting for that, right?
Yeah.
Especially the first time through with you and your wife.
Definitely.
You're like, come on, I want to see you walk. And also, like I want my 15-month-old Brooke to start really talking so bad because they get so frustrated.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're saying. I'm trying to tell you, like, but everyone will tell you, careful when they start talking because then they'll never shut up. And you're like, well, I can't communicate with them.
Yeah.
So we need you to walk. We need you to talk.
Did you do this where I take people's advice, but I also try to block a lot of it out in the sense that until I'm into that stage, it
Yeah.
doesn't do anything for me. So I kind of like file it away, and then once I get there, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what people have told me. I just try not to worry about it because I've noticed they're all different too. You have two of them. Was there a lot of differences between the two when you say, and you're a different parent
Well, I think I
second time?
mean, one of some of the best advice I got is from a friend back in Hawaii he was at school become a marriage counselor, and he's like, you think you're raising your kid exactly the same way because in your head you are, right? Like if we're doing the same things that we did with Brooke, maybe we're, little things have changed that we're trying to pick up on, but things are so much different because your environment's different. You have another one that you're worrying about. So even though each kid you're raising them like having the same uh guidelines or the same ethics, or you're trying to keep them to be good people, but your environment changes with another one. And so each kid's going to be a little bit different by default, even if you're keeping the same core values, because the bottom line is you're different stages in your life. When you're with your first kid, maybe you were younger, right? It doesn't matter who you are. Maybe you were 25, maybe you were 30, maybe you were 40. But each kid is going to kind of change based on where you are in your life, even if you're keeping the same core values that you have, and you still want them to have the baseline of being a good person, being honest, being kind, being accepting, right? But you can't, no one's going to be absolutely perfect. And no, your parenting isn't going to be perfect because it can't be. There's just no way, as you can't replicate the same conditions that you are. I mean, we were in San Francisco and Hawaii, and that's totally different things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always try to, too, it's like, you got to give yourself a break
Hmm.
because none of
Yeah.
us are perfect. We're all kind of learning on the fly with this parenting thing. And I think another thing you realize too quickly is our parents didn't have it all figured out either,
No.
right? We kind of look at our parents as being all knowing. They had to figure it out too, and they had tough nights too. So you got to just give yourself a break. And that's what I try to emphasize to my wife all the time. It's like, look, we're doing everything we can. You're an amazing mom. Not everything's going to go perfect. And that's just the
No.
reality. So,
Yeah.
there's going to be hard times with it. Emotionally straining too because you're sleep deprived and you're learning a lot and there's challenges. So, it's getting to the point though where it's amazing. It's funny because
Yeah.
people ask me when I left before paternity, how's it going? And I'm like, "Oh my God, this isn't This is incredibly challenging,
Yeah.
amazing but hard. And now they're
Yeah.
asking me how's it going. I'm like, it's amazing. But she's sleeping good right now, so
Yeah.
that's like the biggest culprit. If they're
Yeah.
sleeping okay, then you're sleeping okay, and you can kind of deal with everything else.
Hey man, I can hear you. I'm hoping for more sleep this year. We're going into second year with me. Baby's sleeping better, so we're going to try and all develop. We're going to all do this together. I love that. The cool thing about a lot of us that are in around the same age, it just seems like in my life, we're all having kids around the same time so we can lean on each other. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And we should do it as much as possible. If it's like, hey, you got whatever it is, I have my group of friends from back home. And then, like you said, I always try and help you out if you ever need it. But I just love that at least our generation feels like we can lean on each other a little bit more. And maybe I'm wrong. I wasn't around when my parents were raising us, but it just feels like we're kind of we're trying to band together and do this all as a whole.
You're exactly right. And I guess what's nice too is with social media, everybody wants to kind of reveal their situation if they're online. So I'm sure there's a lot of parents that have relied on people that they don't even know for
Yeah.
advice. But
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate all the stuff that you've told me and kind of you've gone through because you just don't know until it happens.
No,
So,
no.
you know.
Yeah. Well, we'll exchange more war stories, more sleep warfare as we get in the season. I kept you way too long, but I appreciate you doing this. We'll have you on. Mic is open. I don't know, whenever you want, whenever you have time. You're a busy guy, and season's just gonna get going. But hopefully, we'll have some games on NBC Sports California. So no, I'll let you get back to it because after this, we're done being what we're doing, and now gonna go be dads.
Let's do it.